Section 1. Video 9. Functions. 1. We will describe function declarations. 2. We will explain anonymous functions, which are function expressions, and how they differ from function declarations. 3. In JavaScript ES6, arrow functions were introduced, and we will explain their syntax and how they differ. 4. These different types of functions have different hoisting rules, which we will demonstrate. We will start with function declarations. Function declarations were implemented in the first edition of JavaScript. A function declaration consists of the function keyword followed by the function name, for example, add, followed by a list of parameters to the function within parentheses, and separated by commas. Let's say, two numbers denoted by a, and b, followed by the JavaScript statements that form the definition of the function, within curly brackets. Let's say we return a plus b. So, now we have a function declaration, complete with its definition. In a previous video, we discussed variables, and showed that variables declared with var were hoisted. Let's declare a variable called greeting above our function declaration, and initialize it with the string hello. Now, let's console log the greeting, before it is declared. We can see that the variable declaration greeting was hoisted, as we don't get a reference error. However, the value assigned to greeting was not hoisted, so we get the value undefined printed to console. Let's add a comment summarizing that. Now, let's console log the function add. We can see that the function declaration, and its definition, have been hoisted. So, we should be able to call the add function, passing two arguments. Let's pass the numbers 3 and 4, for example. The function returns the number 7. We can see that functions can be called before they are declared and defined. This feature of function declarations can be very useful. Let's add a comment. JavaScript functions do not need to have a name. We call functions without a name anonymous functions. More generally, we refer to functions that can be anonymous as function expressions. For example, let's create an anonymous function which takes two numbers, a and b. It returns the product a times b. Now, let's assign this anonymous function to a variable, which we will call multiply. Now, let's console log it earlier in the file. We can see that the function expression's declaration is hoisted, but not its definition. So, unlike a function declaration, we cannot call a function expression before it has been defined. Let's add that information in a comment. Since JavaScript ES6, we can also create a function using an arrow function expression. Arrow functions have a shorter syntax compared to function expressions. Arrow functions are always anonymous. We will show you an example. We will create an arrow function that takes two whole numbers a and b, and returns the remainder after dividing a by b. The syntax of arrow functions is the list of parameters of the function within parentheses, separated by commas. followed by an equals sign and a greater than sign, which is the arrow, followed by the JavaScript statements that define the function, within curly brackets. Now, let's assign this arrow function expression to a variable, which we will call remainder. Let's console log this function called with the numbers 450 and 360. We see that the remainder is 90. We can shorten the syntax of our example arrow function. If an arrow function only has one return expression, we can remove the return keyword and the curly brackets. Let's test the shorter syntax in the browser. The output is unchanged, proving that the shorter syntax is equivalent. Since arrow functions are function expressions, their definition is not hoisted, so we cannot call an arrow function expression before it is defined. To summarize, we described function declarations. We explained anonymous functions, which are function expressions, and how they differ from function declarations. Arrow functions were introduced in JavaScript ES6, and we explained their syntax and how they differ. And we demonstrated the different hoisting rules that functions have. In the next video, we will look at loops in JavaScript.